Okay, our final speaker today, Dr. Bob Nelson. Bob Nelson is president of Nelson Motivation, Inc., a management training and consulting company located in San Diego, California, that specializes in helping organizations improve their management practices, programs, and systems. He is a co-founder of the National Association for Employee Recognition and previously served as vice president for the Ken Blanchard companies. Dr. Nelson has sold almost 3 million books on management and motivation, including 1001 Ways to Reward Employees, now in its second edition, the 1001 Rewards Recognition Fieldbook, 1001 Ways to Energize Employees, you kind of see a pattern here, 1001 Ways to Take Initiative at Work, Managing for Dummies, and the Management Bible. He has appeared extensively in the media, including CNN, MSNBC, PBS, and NPR, and has been featured in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and Fortune magazine. He holds an MBA in organizational behavior from UC Berkeley and received his PhD in management from the Peter F. Drucker Graduate Management School at Claremont Graduate University in Los Angeles, where his doctoral dissertation was on factors that encourage or inhibit the use of non-monetary recognition by U.S. managers. Please help me welcome the guru of thank you, Dr. Bob Nelson.
Is this on? Yeah. Great to be here. The honor of being last up here today, but I tell you what, I've learned something from every single speaker, and I am just wowed. You all have outdone yourself, and there's a lot to be said for that. You know, there's what I like to do, I'm going to keep my comments short, because we're at the end of the day here, and just tell you a couple stories, a couple things I've learned on my journey, which actually started back here at FAU. As a high school student, I won a National Science Foundation scholarship to study advanced mathematics here at FAU, and it really changed my life, my focus. I discovered people and left there with a new vision for my life. I went on to work with some living legends. Ken Blanchard wrote The 1 Minute Manager. I worked with him for 10 years, helped him write 7 books, co-authored a textbook, and Peter Drucker is a father of management. He was on did my doctoral work with him. He just passed this last year. Just really been blessed in my life with some wonderful guides, and I want to just kind of summarize and help put in a context of all the great learnings we've had here, and maybe talk a little bit more tactical as to how you can put those in motion for you in your life. I know from my own doctoral work that there's really 2 secrets of managing success and performance from my research and looking at lots of leadership studies. And the first has to do with a topic that has come up several times, that of goal setting. That all performance starts with clear goals. You got to know what you want in order to get them. We know the best goals are few in number. They're specific. You can't focus on everything. You can only do one thing at a time. And Dr. Drucker used to say that the only people that get anything done are the megalomaniacs that focus and focus and focus, and then maybe take a break and work on something else before they go back and focus some more. So we know that the best goals are stretch goals. They're not too easy, they're not too hard. If they're too easy, you don't try. If they're too hard, you don't try either. It's got to be somewhere in between. So there's a challenge, so that there's a chance you can do it, but a chance that may not happen unless you really try it hard. And we know that when all comes down to it, you've got to have that to make things happen. But one of the things that I find in talking to students and people young in their life is the question, well, how do you know what goals to have? How do I know what I should do with my life? And I think that's an interesting question and one that bears looking at. For me, what I've learned, and I think research bears this out, is it's a couple things. We've heard passion talked about here. What things do you enjoy? What things are you drawn to? What things that when you work on them, time flies by? Those are good signals to pay attention to. Marry that with what you're good at. Now I find a lot of times people take things that they're good at, a lot of times they take them for granted. Because they're good at it, it comes so easy, they almost dismiss those things. Well, that's a mistake. Because what you're good at, you can be great at if you focus a little bit more on it. And so pay attention to what things come easy to you, and especially to what things that you get feedback from others, whether it's teachers or parents or friends, of things you're good at. If you look at what you love, what you enjoy, what you're good at, and what you get feedback on, you can start to triangulate on some things that make sense for you in your life. I know for me, probably in high school, I remember one English paper that when the teacher was passing them out, she stopped at my desk and she said, "Best paper I had in 5 classes." I was actually embarrassed. But I took that paper, I went back and I reread it because I didn't know what I had done, honestly, to say what was so good about this paper. And I started to learn really from myself and saw that I could be a writer. When I had, many years later, when I had an idea for a book, in a classroom, by the way, I heard one of my professors say, that we've got overwhelming evidence about the power of positive reinforcement, probably 2,000 studies, but he made an observation. He said, but very few people that it really hasn't been put into practice in business. And I had a thought that said, I want to change that. I want to put that principle into practice. If we know it's true, if we know it'll work, if people still don't do it, I want to be a translator of proven concepts to everyday use. And with that, I wrote, I got home from school, hour-and-a-half drive away, and I wrote a letter to a president of a publisher in New York. I overnighted it. I was very excited, had this idea. And it took me 2 weeks to get him on the phone. And just out of, would you talk to this guy? He keeps calling us. And finally, the president of this publisher got me on and said, "What do you want?" So I wrote this letter. He goes, "You wrote a letter and you expect us to respond to that?" Well, he goes, "Let me tell you, there's no way we'll respond to the letter. If there's a book that you think that you want to write, you've got to say a proposal as to why it has to be out there today. Of the 70,000 books that are published a year, now it's 170,000 published a year. Why your book has got to be one of those. And why we're the only possible publisher that could ever get it right." And as he's hanging up the phone, he goes, "By the way, we get 10,000 proposals a year, and we publish 24 books." And I'm sure he thought he'd never hear from me again. But again, coming back to other speakers here, you put in front of you the sights of what you're going to do. I said, "Okay, proposal. I can do a proposal." And I did a proposal, and I got an agent, and the book was 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees. I remember the agent saying, "Is it really going to be 1,001 ways in this book?" I said, "Well, no, there's 300 in the proposal. How hard could it be?" And I kept pushing. I got, at this point, I'm in a new gear, and got interest in other publishers, had several publishers very interested, had several that dismissed it out of hand. And the key, part of the key in all this is to focus on the things that reinforce what you want to do, and to dismiss the people that don't see what you see. That's okay too. Just don't have them speak to you. Follow the muse that you have and look for the indications of support wherever it is, from your family, from your spouse, from your significant other, from a friend. And as you do that, you're going to find that you're going to draw to you those people that are supporters of you, and you'll be supporters of them. And that's how visions get achieved. That book came out 13 years ago. It just went into its 51st printing. It has about 2 million copies in print. The average, it's said that in publishing, only 1 book out of 10 that's written gets published. Only 1 out of 10 goes beyond the first printing, which tends to be about 5,000 copies. So out of 7,000 business books that are printed a year today, that book ranks in the top 5 or 10 of all business books ever done. So I'm proud of that book. But it wasn't just a book for me. It was a mission to motivate. It was a mission to use that as a stepping stone to something more, to help organizations. At this point, I've helped about 1,000 organizations in applying those concepts in a systematic way. And it really ends up being, you end up living your dream. My son, I remember when he was younger, he asked, he said, "Dad, how come you have to leave?" You know, I fly around a lot and whatnot, and my wife didn't hesitate. She goes, Dad's living his dream. And it's a good dream, and it's one that includes him. So goals starts with number one. Even more powerful than the principle of having a clear vision and chipping away at it is what you do. And again, with this people aspect of it, the most powerful management principle in the world is that you get what you reward. You get what you notice, what you reinforce from those around you. Life is not an island. That you are very dependent on those around you, and as you pay attention, they can become part of your dream. To any behavior in your life, you got three possible consequences: positive, negative, or no consequences. To any behavior, and overwhelmingly, most people report that where they work and where they live, that they don't find a lot of consequences. They go through the day, and they don't get a lot of feedback one way or the other. In fact, most employees report the only time they get feedback at work is when they make a mistake, when they did something wrong, when they violate a policy, and it becomes kind of a lightning rod that again sends you this negative message that you know, you're no good and whatnot, that we can end up believing if we're not careful. The most powerful principle, the most powerful consequences are the positive ones. This is a validated research at Ohio State University. They did studies. They found that on a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 times as powerful as no consequences or negative consequences. Stephen Covey talks about a 7-to-1 ratio. And this is where it's going in today's society, where there's a lot of negativity, where there's a lot of stress, where there's a lot of angst, where there's a lot of change. You have to stake out the positive in a bigger way. For you, in your life, for those that are part of your life. And you've got to live that in a huge way. This is true in all aspects of your life, in any relationship in your life. I mentioned my son, Danny. He's now 16. I remember when he was 5 years old. He came home from preschool, and he announced that he'd like to take piano lessons. Well, my wife and I were delighted. We'd never played a musical instrument, and we said, Danny, that would be great. Now we could have done this. We could have said, well, if we're going to spend good money on piano lessons, you have got to practice. You have to do that every day. And you might say, do I have to? Yes, you have to. That's the deal. But we didn't do that because we thought that if we did that, within no time at all, he'd come to hate piano because it's something he had to do. We wanted to be something that he wanted to do. And initially there was an inkling of motivation that was intrinsic that we wanted to reinforce. So if you pay attention to that, we talked about, well, what can we do to reinforce Danny playing piano? And so we said, well, let's notice when he practiced. And we did. You know, we said, Danny, those scales are coming along great. That new song, did you pick it out? Well, we know he did. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Get Grandma on the phone, you know. We made a big deal out of it. Within a few weeks, he asked, could he take lessons twice a week? We said that would be fine. First time he played publicly, he couldn't have been this tall. Another parent came over to be all animated and said, I've never seen someone so young play with such passion. What are you doing to get that from your son? And basically all we're doing is positive reinforcement. We're noticing, and we're acknowledging, and we're praising, and we're doing it in a systematic way. When he was 9, he played at a music recital, 167 other students. He was one of 3 selected to play to a music teachers conference. The other 2 were graduating seniors. When he was 11, we were in the local library, and someone was playing piano, and my son goes, I'd like to do that someday. I said, someday? Let's go talk to the librarian now. That's called opportunity. And we did. We reserved a room. We came back a month later. Danny played a public recital. In it, he covered 400 years of classical music. To each piece, he showed a picture of the composer and discussed what was going on in their life. I'm in the audience crying. Let me tell you, I'm a proud dad, but these concepts truly work, and they could truly work for you if you take them seriously. You have a choice when you graduate. You have a choice in any job you take to have it be a stepping stone to the rest of your career, to take these principles you've heard today and to put them into practice and to hold them dear and to live them day in and day out and to fine-tune your vision. And I have one other thing I want to share with you from a book I've subsequently written. Because I find, as was mentioned earlier, that it's funny because I've worked with over 1,000 organizations, and I find that some people are motivated and excited, but there's a lot of employees out there that they feel like they're a victim of their circumstances. And someone else got the promotion, and someone else should have been them, and it's always someone else's fault. And after a while, you see a very clear pattern that they're not in control of their own life. It's everyone else that's making things happen. And they don't see that they can be the driver, and they don't try to drive their own ship. And in this book I wrote called Please Don't Just Do What I Tell You, Do What Needs to Be Done, I have an open letter to any prospective employee, of which I assume you all will soon be in that category. It says, "Dear employee, you've been hired to handle some pressing needs we have. If we couldn't have gotten by in not hiring you, if we could have gotten by and not hire you, we would have. But we've determined that we need someone with your skills and experience and that you were the best person to help us with our needs. We have offered the position and you've accepted. Thank you. During the course of your employment, you will be asked to do many things: general responsibilities, specific assignments, group and individual projects. You will have many chances to excel and to confirm that we made a good choice in hiring you. However, there is one foremost responsibility that may never be explicitly requested of you, but that you need to always keep in mind through the duration of your employment. This is the ultimate expectation, and it reads as follows: always do what most needs to be done without waiting to be asked. We've hired you to do a job, yes, but more importantly, we've hired you to think, to use your judgment and act in the best interest of the organization at all times. If we never say this again, don't take it as an indication it's no longer important to us or that we've changed our priorities. We are likely to get caught up in the daily press of business, the never-ending changes of the operation, the ongoing rush of activities. Our day-to-day practices may make it look like this principle no longer applies. Don't be deceived by this. As long as you're employed with us, you have our permission to act in our mutual best interest. If at any time you do not feel we are doing the right thing, the thing that you most believe would help us all, please say so. You have our permission to speak up when necessary, to state what is unstated, to make a suggestion, or to question an action or decision. This doesn't mean we'll always agree with you, nor that we will necessarily change what we are doing, but we always want to hear what you most believe would help us better achieve our goals and purpose, and to create a mutually successful experience in the process. You will need to seek to understand how and why things are done the way they are done before you seek to change existing work processes. Try to work with the systems that are in place first, but tell us if you think those systems need to be changed, need to be improved. Discuss what's presented here with me, with others in the organization, so we might all better apply the ultimate expectation. The biggest mistake you can make in life is to think you work for someone else. You all work for yourself. You will work for yourself for the rest of your life. You might get a paycheck somewhere else, but you are always in charge. You are always responsibility. What you're doing, what you're learning, how you're growing, how you're moving your ship forward. Thank you for being a part of this day, and I understand we've got food for 800 that we want to get to next.
Bob, in appreciation, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.